University of New Mexico, class of 75. And I am, at the moment, I have a broad range of interests, but at the moment I'm interested in finding out why it is that, or if there's anything we can do about perceptions among not only legislators, but the general public. And so I'm talking about, as Michael J. Copps, the famous commissioner from the FCC several years ago said, if media and communications is not your first issue, it needs to be your second.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's good.
I completely agree with you, Dave.
Susan Harris.
On my video, I was eating and will continue to have dinner, but I got so distressed about politics when Trump was elected, and I saw his behavior, and I thought I need to get involved and do what I can. And Indivisible said, get involved at the local level. So I joined the local Indivisible group, and then learned about your group and have participated in it a little bit. And I just am trying to educate myself about politics, both state and local and nationally, and be involved a little bit where I can, because I find it very stressful. So that's me.
Okay, well, we'll try and make it less stressful.
Oh, well, I mean, it takes a lot of time and.
Right. No, we understand. Yeah.
Okay.
Laura Rydell.
Okay.
I'm Laura Rydell. I'm from the San Francisco Bay Area. And I would say that I have two major issues, the top one being good government and the second one being economic development.
I could have guessed the second one.
Right.
Maria Spray.
Sorry. I'm Maria Spray. I grew up here in Santa Fe. I'm a native, St. Michael's High School class of 1986. Sorry, Dave. And I did go to New Mexico State. But anyway, having lived here all my life and seeing the inequity grow and grow and grow between wealthy people and and those who don't have, just getting bigger is my real pet peeve, and it's been that way for a very long time. And just trying to figure out how to change that and any kind of voice I can get. I work full time, so it's kind of hard for me to be involved in them a lot, but that's why I'm here, is to just kind of learn and see what I can do, at least to throw in a little bit of help here and there.
Well, community wealth building might be something you're interested in, because that hits that square on the head. Terry Davidson.
Hello, Terry Davidson. I'm from Albuquerque. I've been here about 7 years now. Lived all over Los Angeles, Seattle, New York, and kind of here now. My main issues at the moment tend to be environmental. Very concerned about what's happening, particularly with water issues. And that's one of my main focuses.
Okay, Carrie Storch, how are you?
I'm well. Hi, how are you all? Nice to see everyone. Terry Storch, I'm in Albuquerque, and I'm just sort of all over the place. Can I say, I think if I'm going to focus on anything in the next 8 months, it might be criminal justice issues. That's a big if, but that's, and housing. So thanks.
Thank you.
And we've got Roger Fletcher up next.
Hi, I'm a retired teacher and looking to become a little more active in a lot of things. Climate and social justice are kind of the two big areas for me. And just moved, after 3 years in Santa Fe, moved to Cochiti Lake 6 months ago.
Okay. I like Cochiti Lake. Anne Marie, you look like you have somebody with you.
I have my husband with me, Herb Failing. We are here 7 years. We moved from Washington, D.C., Capitol Hill, actually. And my background is fashion and design, so I'm not sure I really have skills to offer, but I am very interested in your concept. And so that's why I'm joining in to see if there is anything I can offer.
Okay.
Great.
Well, if we do a ball, you can do the costume design part.
Right. Maybe I can be the volunteer and answer phones. That's what I'm thinking, whatever little task there might be.
Okay, well, thank you. We're going to find something for you. Karen Keeney.
Wait, what about her husband?
Oh, what about your husband?
Herb.
Herb.
Yeah, my name's Herb Failing, and I work with Represent Us, New Mexico, and American Promise, primarily campaign finance reform, and trying to get some of the money out of politics and return our democracy to people.
It's one of our top 5 priorities, so you'll
I
find something to do.
I'll work with you.
All right, Karen Keeney.
Hey there, sorry for the lack of picture, but internet, it's weird. I'm out in Cerrillos for about the last going on 4 years, a West Coaster before that. Retired lawyer, interested in a very broad spectrum of issues, but very concerned about bending that arc of history toward true justice as quickly as possible.
Oh, well, you finally got one good decision yesterday, huh? Pat
Yes.
Thomas, you're next up.
Hi. So I live in Espanola, and my husband and I have been here about 34 years. And I guess because of that, I'm interested in, anything that affects rural areas, from agriculture, water, all the oil and gas development that's gone on in Rio County. I've had some experience in labor law and union organizing. I guess those are the main issues, environmental, and I wanted to tell Terry, I met you I lived in Albuquerque for about 12 years, and I think I met you.
Pat?
Yeah, I was a roommate of Karen and Jeff.
Yeah, you were married to Mr. Padilla.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, Pat. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
go ahead and.
Let's get acquainted on chat. You
Yeah,
guys.
Sorry, I had to say that.
This goes back close to 40 years when Albuquerque had a thriving, pretty friggin' left community.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
Okay, great, Pat. Wonderful. Right, you're a lawyer. Okay, cool.
Great way to reconnect.
Jeff Selesky.
Okay, you unmute. I'm spend most of my time in Rio Rancho, also up in Seattle. I'm a retired real estate developer, and a couple of things. I'm very excited about Rethink, and I'm interested in helping to what extent I can in the financial side, helping to make sure we can get Rethink established as a nonprofit, and be happy to help with making that happen in terms of fundraising or whatever. Secondly, in terms of specifics, I'm particularly interested and concerned about the oil and gas industry money influence in New Mexico, and specifically figuring out ways we might work with the legislatures that would be most receptive to developing a modeling in which we can really help with that transition, and specifically, how is the money going to happen? How do we replace all this money that's going, to quote public good from oil and gas? How does that transition really happen? Because I think fundamentally that's the only way we're going to make it happen. We've got to deal with the numbers on it, and so that's kind of what I've been thinking in the last couple of weeks.
Okay, Ann Kepley. Thank you, Jeff.
Hi, I'm Ann Kepley. I'm from the Midwest. I've been in New Mexico 10 years. I joined Retake originally because I needed background on legislatures. I come from the Chicago area, and everything is political there. And then you come here and you can't find out any information. So I'm interested in information, education. I'm also on the Democratic Party of Sandoval County's communication team, and I am precinct chair for precinct 132.
All right, way to dig in.
Thank you.
Angela Merkert, I guess you're interested in public banking.
No.
For one, yes, but it's not the only thing. I've been involved in change management in higher education, the corporate world, and nonprofits for most of my career. And I'm currently executive director of Alliance for Local Economic Prosperity, which is the group leading the public bank campaign.
Okay, thank you, Angela.
Wait, I don't think she was
Oh, were
done.
you, did you have something else?
I'm very interested in democratizing our government, and especially more closely reforming our New Mexico legislature, and also economic justice. And I've been here in the state for about 15 years after time in El Paso, Dallas, Boston, and Chicago. So this has been good. And I just want to help strengthen New Mexico's government and economy.
Okay. Mr. Gregory, Charles Gregory.
I'm from Albuquerque. I've been here a little over 40 years. I belong to Indivisible Nob Hill. And thanks to my interest, or thanks to my activities in the Senate advocacy group that you guys rallied us to in this last legislative session, I've gotten real interested in how we actually influence legislators.
Well, we will have plenty to tell you in the report card, because we're learning a good deal about the best way to do that. Adam Wasserman, you're next.
I've lived here in Santa Fe for about 2.5 years. Before that, I was living in Washington, D.C. area. I did go to St. John's College here in Santa Fe, so a long time ago. So back in the 70s. My professional background's mostly in foreign affairs and international politics and democratization and democracy transition. Issues that I'm particularly interested in, I guess, would be political transformation, fundamental political change. I'd love to see New Mexico be a leader in things like top 4 or 5 primaries and ranked choice voting and other things that we could really, and Angela hit it on the head too, that we need to reform our legislature and make it paid and professional and competent. But I'm also very interested in climate change and our energy situation, and I've dug in the past on issues of economic inequality quite fairly deeply.
Greg, we're going to skip you so that you can hunt down that Buckminster Fuller quote you sent to me.
Oh, maybe he already knows it. What it is.
If you have it right there, if you could read it to people, that'd be great. Otherwise, we'll give you a chance to go find it.
Okay, I'll go look for it.
Okay, Joyce.
Hi there, everybody. I'm originally from Boston and New York, and let's see, my background, I missed the first few minutes, so I'm trying to catch up here with what I'm hearing from others. My background is in international business, traveling the world, and then healthcare more recently. And off and on, I've been in New Mexico for approximately 25 years. And my interest is in sustainable housing, ownership cooperatives, and also healthcare.
Okay, Barbara Conroy. You got to unmute, Barbara, or you're a silent movie.
Can't hear you.
There we go. I've been here a very long time, and I love being part of Retake because I have really learned a lot and been able to find a place for me to serve. And I'm hoping that Rethink will also give me some little niche that I can work in. I've got wide interests and have worked on a lot of different issues.
Well, we'll find something for you, Barbara. I promise you that. Greg, did you find that?
He just put it in the chat.
Oh, you never.
Yeah.
I wanted to just say it out loud because it could be the mantra for Rethink. You never change things by fighting against the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the old model obsolete. And that's from Buckminster Fuller. And I want to thank you, Greg, for that.
Sure.
So let's let Greg
Yeah,
introduce
Greg,
himself.
introduce yourself.
Yeah, okay. So I'm pretty much a newcomer to New Mexico, 7 years, I guess. And I'm in Pojoaque, north of Santa Fe. My stone interest is nuclear weapons. Against my will, I'm the president of the Santa Fe chapter of Veterans for Peace. I was just shoved into the spot. I didn't want it. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know about that. Anyway, so that's my number one interest, and yeah, I'll just stop there.
Okay, Katie Brule.
Hi, I am in Los Alamos, and I work a lot, so it's hard for me to squeeze in volunteering, which means I usually commit to more than I can actually do. And my number one issue is probably criminal justice.
Okay.
Great. And we've got people on page 2.
Oh, it might be just one. Bill Bright.
Yes, I'm Bill Bright from Gallup, New Mexico, McKinley County, and I'm sorry about that.
Oh, we're actually very happy to hear that.
We're glad we need people.
I feel like I have to apologize for at least 2 of our 4 elected officials for this area. I'm sorry. They don't listen to me. I've tried. I'm retired education and health and active locally with Habitat for Humanity. So I'm interested in low income housing. Gallup Solar. So I'm interested in solar energy and happy to hear about community solar finally getting through. So those are my local efforts. I don't belong to a party. I would call myself a progressive. So I sent you that article on Eric.
Oh, yeah.
So when I heard progressive was happening within certain parties in New Mexico, I got more interested in, what's going on, promoting that.
Yeah, if I get the blog posted tomorrow, it will have this Intercept interview with Eric Griego. He's one of our thought partners, and there's a couple people that admit, wow, we got 2 latecomers.
Okay, I'm admitting them.
And so we'll put them on the spot immediately. Michael, you're used to being on the spot. We're just asking for,
a 30-second
introduction of who you are and what you care about.
What your issues that you care about are.
Talking to me?
Yes, Michael Spurberg McQueen.
My name is Michael Spurberg McQueen. I live in La Mesilla. And gosh, I probably care most about economic justice issues. So payday lending, predatory lending, the sick leave bill that passed this past time, taxation, which I've gotten interested in for odd reasons. And
that'll keep you busy.
That's enough to keep anybody busy.
Yeah. I don't think we got Paula.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
Paula, you want to just give us 30 seconds about who you are and what you're interested in?
Everything. My name is Paula Saploff. I'm a political anthropologist. I've worked in Mexico and Mongolia. And I'm most interested in preserving the remnants of our democracy. What can I say? Through voting, through redistricting, through reducing lobbyists, etc.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there anyone that we missed? Anyone that didn't get to speak?
I don't think so.
Okay, just double checking.
So we're going to try and do this and be out by 7. We may go a few minutes over, but what we want to talk about, the first thing kind of on the agenda is to just review the agenda. So I want to give you a sense. What we want to talk about is like first of all, why rethink? And I mean, why are we doing this? And what is its purpose and scope of work? And we'll try and run by that very quickly. We're going to presume that most of you have looked at our summary so that we don't have to go into great depth. And then if some of you haven't, maybe you'll make a point of doing so. And to do that, now on the homepage, in the homepage menu, there's a menu for Rethink, and it clicks to, and it will have more stuff there as we move forward.
Right. Eventually, we'll have a whole separate website for
Right.
Rethink.
And then we're going to talk about the scope of work itself, which is daunting. We've had people say, you can't be serious about covering all those issues. We're going to talk a little bit about how we prioritized and why. And then we're going to just outline some possible roles that people could play. And then hopefully we'll get through all of that in like 15 minutes. And then the floor is yours. We want to hear from you about ideas, comments, and questions. So if that sounds all right, we'll start with what our purpose is.
Oh, and if you have a question, just use the hand raising function, which, wait, I don't even see the hand raising function. Just
Reactions, it's under reactions.
Oh, okay. Under reactions at the bottom of your screen
Raise hand.
is raise hand. So
Yeah.
just use that because that helps us put people in the order that they raise their hand.
Okay. So, you know, part of the purpose is we do a little bit of electioneering, and we'd like to do more. But in order, well, you know, election advocacy and stuff,
Yes.
and that fits in a 501c4. But 90% of what we do, maybe 95% of what we do is a 501c3. And we've talked to attorneys about it. And so we want to set up a system that separates out the 501c4 from the 501c3 so that it makes it easier for funders to fund us. And we've already had conversations with 2 foundations, both of which are very interested in funding us and eager for us to get our 501c3 processed. So that's
And-
one of the reasons.
And one organization where we don't have to be a 501c3,
Right, right.
which is, I don't know if you want to mention that.
Yeah. And then the other thing we want to do then is to secure funding so that we can have staff. It's unsustainable. We rely on a lot of volunteers. We could do a way better job of utilizing volunteers if we had more time. And the way we would have more time is to have somebody dedicated to the work. Maybe 2 people over the next 2 years is what we're hoping for. And
To hire paid.
to hire as
positions.
paid positions.
Yeah.
And the idea there also is Roxanne and I will ultimately run out of steam or breath. And we want it to be sustained. Too many people tell us that we fill a unique niche, and we want to be able to sustain that work after we're done doing it. And so that's actually one of the most fundamental reasons for doing this. And with staff, I think we can be a lot more methodical, consistent. Many of you have written to us, and it takes us days to get back to you. That happens with allies as well. And we just think we'll be a lot more methodical. And so our first hire would be what one of the foundations suggested was a community liaison who would essentially, you know, organize the Zooms, organize the radio show, do the alerts, all of that kind of stuff, which is a lot communications, you know, organize allies and so forth. And then part of what we want to do differently with Rethink, the distinguishing feature between Retake, is we want to use the time in between sessions. And now, you know, we're going to view that as 18 months because we'll have probably a reasonably modest role in the short session to do deeper dives and research things and organize materials. It's not that far from what those of you who are in the transformation study group were in. It's not that far from that. It's very similar. But the idea would be that it would be, instead of producing briefs that are sort of just like research, it'd be more like applied research with the idea that it would be a tool for advocates and a tool for legislators and other CBOs who do advocacy work like Angela, and working with them to try and get to be more proactive and less reactive. We'll continue to react to legislative bills and things like that that are introduced and do the alerts, but we want to get to the point where we're bringing bills to legislators and asking them to draft the legislation and working with legislative council services to make sure they get it right.
Or bringing information to legislators when they're discussing issues, early on during the interim hearings.
Yeah, we want to have a much bigger presence at the interim hearings. We wanted to do that last year, but the pandemic made it really weird. If you went to an interim hearing, you were just a square, an observer. You didn't really have an opportunity to talk usually, and you didn't have a chance to mingle with legislators, which is where lobbyists get their work done. And so we figure by having a staff person who could work with us, we'd be more able to do that. And hopefully some of the interim sessions this year will be in person. And then the final thing is we want to educate the community better. And what we would say is we have justice generalists for the most part who are supporters. They care about justice. And what we want to do is do deep dives into a range of issues. And so, for example, when we polled people on what issues matter most to you in terms of what legislation we should pursue or support, rural issues did not do well. And even agricultural issues did not do well. They were consistently at the bottom. It was climate change, it was tax, it was reforming democracy. And we want to try and transform a lot of generalists into people who wind up becoming educated and engaged in a wider range of issues. We see one of the unique features of Retake that we span and are intersectional, and it's not like with the Sierra Club or with Voices or with New Mexico Environmental Law Center. They kind of have they do it well, but they're in a certain specific niche.
Right, and could you go turn it off?
Yeah.
Sorry, I have the beeper on the stove. I just asked Paul to turn it off. I wanted to add to that. We don't just want to educate advocates that are already out there. We want to educate the general public too, because I think that's so important for getting some of these big issues through, whether it's public banking or, health security, just things that people don't understand at all. So yeah, we want to start with advocates and legislators, because God knows they need more information on issues and on bills. But we want to mount a public education campaign, especially with some of the bigger issues.
Talk about your 20% issues.
Well, I mentioned this in a previous call that some of you were on, and I recently read that, well, in the last few months anyway, that they did some research and they found that really just 20% of Democrats and Republicans or people who are into politics, who are affiliated with the party, are paying attention and having the conversations. And the rest of the 80% of people out there are just not paying attention. They don't have time, they don't care, they don't feel smart about it. And so they're either not engaged at all, maybe not even voting. So part of what I really want to do is to find new language, new ways of explaining things to people, so that it's not, people hear the word politics and they just, they turn away, or they don't want to have anything to do with it. So we need to help people understand how some of these issues, some of this legislation, some of these policies can change their lives. And I think there's a lot of people out there that really just need more information so that they can make good decisions and understand the issues.
And one of the reasons we want a community liaison is that person hopefully will have really serious chops in social media, Instagram, tweet, Facebook, tweet. I'm sorry. It shows you how much experience I have with it. That's why you need somebody. and so that's a way of engaging people who we aren't engaging yet. So that's the basic purpose. And then the scope of work, which I'm hoping most of you have looked at, I'm only going to really talk about, or we're only going to talk about the top 5 priorities. And the first one is, and this is not in a particular order.
And this is available on the website under the Rethink tab in the top menu bar, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
And the first one is election, legislative, and governance reform. So that's something, and we heard a number of you mention that. We sort of see that as seminal. If Bruce Berlin were on, he'd be ecstatic that I'm saying this. And we feel that that's seminal to getting anything done. The way it is right now, and boy, the more I talk with legislators, it's just a mess. And it makes it very difficult for people like us to have an impact.
Yeah, and so not everybody was on the call earlier, and some of you may have read this in the blog, but Paul's in the middle of doing a series of interviews, not public, not radio interviews, just, you know, a lot of them off the record with various legislators to talk to them about how things go in the roundhouse and what the problems are and what we can do about it, that kind of thing.
Right. And so by the end of next week, I'll probably have spoken with 20 legislators. And they're being very candid. And then the next one is progressive tax and revenue reform, which if Rich Weiner were on the call, he'd be delighted to hear.
But Laura is delighted too.
Yeah. And you know, it's just, we view tax and revenue as moral decisions, and you can't do anything without money. And so we've got to start taking from people who have profited well on the capitalist system and get it into services, supports, and opportunities and development stuff. And then the third is the proper role of government. And this is to counter the prevailing feeling that started with Reagan started with the 9 words you don't want to ever hear. I'm from government and I'm here to help. And we want to start framing how there are so many things. And I think we're learning this from COVID, the transition. I mean, you couldn't ask for a more abrupt shift from Trump to Biden. And so we want to really focus on the ways in which government can make life better for people and can move things in the right direction
and
on
help,
any number of ways.
And help people understand that they can be helped by government. Yeah.
And the next one is also related to that and is reversing privatization and exploring public options. And that could have to do with private prisons, public energy, public transportation, public bank, and all of those kinds of opportunities. And so that's where the role of government steps in. They start to actually play a role in those things rather than just handing them off. And we all saw just how well the COVID relief did when Trump passed everything off to private industry and let let the states compete with each other and all of that. And so this is, we see as, and all of these we see as really foundational to the others that follow. And then the fifth one and final of the highest priorities are community wealth building. And that has an array of things, but it's basically the idea of keeping the money in communities, investing in small business, and not having all the box stores and everything extract our wealth and take it out of our communities. And so those are the 5 top ones that we have. And I'll just tick off the others and we won't go into any depth on them, but I will preface it by saying, having said all of that, the very first post that I did this week on Monday, that was supposed to be sort of a model for what we want this thing to look like, was on agriculture, sustainable and regenerative agriculture. And so, you know, I have absolutely no discipline. And I got a couple of articles that were really good about that issue. And so I just did it. And I say that because I've heard people in this group say housing, climate change, et cetera, public safety or criminal justice. we want to encourage those people as well. They can be working on stuff for this. And as it gets done, we will publish it and it will become part of what we view in the long term as a kind of, I don't know, rethinking democracy manual. Because the difference between what the transformation group had been doing and what we hope this will be is it'll be much more of, the first iteration will be maybe a research brief, but then it's going to be about finding people in the country that are doing exactly this and finding the stakeholders in this state that would be interested in doing it too. And in some cases, like with the agriculture thing that I wrote on Monday, the first thing I found out was, there's a coalition, the Agriculture, Food and Ag
Policy Council. Yeah.
That has all their oars in the water. They got it figured out. They just need us to support them. And so when we find that out, we would back off and follow. When we see a void, we'll lead. But our preference is to follow.
And
support. And support. And so the other issue areas are healthcare and public health, criminal justice, public safety, local food production and distribution, democratizing the workplace, sustainable and affordable housing, renewable energy, environmental justice, infrastructure development in rural and indigenous communities, reimagining education, anti-racism, and a social safety net. And that's, Roxanne and I sitting around and coming up with our list. Some of it was derived from the transformation group. But for instance, someone had an issue around nuclear, and that was Greg. And, it's very conceivable that we would take that on as well. Primarily, if it was just, if it was nuclear, if it didn't have a New Mexico connection, if we were in Connecticut, that we probably wouldn't have that rise to the level. Not that it's not important, but we feel that the impact we can have is at a state level, not at a national level.
Well, and we might need to rethink climate change, because we've got renewable energy, we've got local food production, which is kind of related. Some of these things are related, but we don't have an overarching, like where would the Green Amendment come in,
right,
in one of these categories? It doesn't really fit exactly anywhere. So we might, as we start to move forward, we could very well, revise some of these categories, or add, or possibly delete, or combine. So this is not written in stone by any means.
And I'm glad Roxanne mentioned the Green Amendment, because one of the interviews I did today was with Antoinette Cedillo Lopez, and she basically is planning to reintroduce the Green Amendment in the short session. And she doesn't have to, it's an amendment, so it doesn't have to be on the call.
Resolution.
It's a resolution, and doesn't have to be on the call, and it doesn't need the governor's signature. And in talking with legislators, it's hard to find a Democrat opposed to it. And so it got stalled in Senate Judiciary, and we're going to see if we can't do something about that. So I just wanted to let you know that. So the last thing I wanted to just do is tick off 5 possible roles for people, and I'm sure there are others, but we need somebody to do information gathering, and not just someone, could be several people, which basically means in a specific issue area, going out and compiling an inventory of relevant articles, video, and model programs. There's no major writing involved in this. You don't have to be able to slave over paragraphs. It's a set of bullets and list, and then passing it on, and links and stuff like that, and passing it on. Then there's an issue area overview, which would be sort of like what Terry and Rich did on tax in the transformation study group. It covered a whole range of tax and revenue policies, and we need those. And so the thing I did on agriculture would also be similar to that. But then, and that's going to be a rather longer piece. It has to be. But then the real stuff we're going to be using mostly are briefs that are on. So for example, in the agriculture thing that I did, we would want somebody to write a brief on urban farming, you know, and that's just a narrow thing. Where is it happening? How does it work? What is it? How is it connected with schools? Things like that. And then somebody else would do something on, oh, look at the hearts. And then somebody else would do something on, you know, indigenous seed practices. So, you know, it'd be, we would be all over the place, but all of them would be tied together by the overview. And those briefs would be the things we would be going looking for legislators and for CBO organizations like New Mexico Voices and seeing, is this in your wheelhouse? Do you want to do this? This is what it would look like. And, you know, where we don't see the CBO to advance it, we'll find a legislator to advance it and get them to introduce it.
Well, and in some cases, some of our allies, like if you look at Voices for Children, already have really good briefs in some areas. So we could repurpose the things that they've already created and just distribute them in a different way.
Yeah, and they could be also, like for instance, the brief that Terry and Rich did, there's no way that that would be something that would engage the part of the public that Roxanne was talking about that just don't pay attention. We need something that like grabs them right away and that, you know, dramatic about how
here's how your taxes could change.
Yeah, this is how you are getting screwed kind of thing
This
in
is what
relation
this-
to tax and revenue.
But this is what this revenue could build in your community.
But we need the overviews and the briefs in order to give us the information to kind of figure out what's the language and what's the thing that would be best to try and hook people and get them a little bit interested. Two more things. One is alliance development. And again, this would not involve writing. It would involve phone calls. It could be to legislators. It could be to CBOs. It could be to allies in other parts of the state to try and get information from them. And then the final one is just social media. It's one thing if we have a communications liaison, but we'd want that communications liaison to train others to start utilizing social media more effectively and getting the word out. Again, trying to get to those 80% that don't really pay attention. So that's the overall picture. And now we're open to questions and comments. And all you have to do is raise your hand, and it's over by on the right side bottom where it says reactions. Are there?
You did such a good job. Nobody has any questions.
No questions?
Or comments?
Are we going to go to dinner?
Or yay, that sounds good.
Seriously, I've never seen you.
Oh, there's Maria. Yay, Maria. Go ahead.
Right. I mean, you asked for questions, so I had to come up with something. What I was thinking actually was when you were talking about rural and trying to get out and educating people. You know, educating the people in the rural area is extremely difficult for any number of reasons, as you know. What are you thinking as far as how to do that? Because, you know, what happens in New Mexico, and I believe Paul actually pointed this out in one of his blogs, is that, you know, people here, they're like, wait a minute, that's not how we do things here in New Mexico. We don't, you know, we gotta, that's not the way it's done. So what kind of thoughts do you have, or have you come up with any, or are you just taking, you know, ideas right at the moment? Like, how are you going to get to these people and make them understand, or not make them understand, but learn from them what their difficulties are, what their issues are, and how we can work with them and get them to work with us to change policy or to get out policy that's beneficial to them in their own self-interest.
Well, one of the things, and I can't wait to look at this, one of the people we spoke with yesterday was Carmen Lopez, and she used to be with the Thornburg Foundation, and now is the executive director for the nation of
Innovation,
the State Innovation Network
Exchange.
Yeah, it's a really incredible organization.
It's like the progressive equivalent to the ALEC, the people who write legislation.
And she's a good friend. She's the person who's helping. She's the first person who came to us when she was with Thornburg like 2 or 3 years ago, asking us to form a 501c3. But one of the things Six did was a webinar on exactly that. It was like making policy palatable to people. And she said, and when we were done, we realized it really should have said rural people, because the whole focus is on how to convey issues to rural communities. And so once I've seen that, because I don't like to post things that I haven't seen or read, we'll share that. And that seems like a starting point. But the other thing is the Lakoff, just in terms of George Lakoff and reframing things and using terminology that you intentionally select that could have a rural bent to it or be received well in a rural community. Roxanne, you had something.
Well, and I think we would probably tap into existing community organizations. I mean, in rural communities. I mean, maybe even the faith community, you know, I mean, it depends on what religion. Some are a little more open than others. And, you know, we may wind up doing some more of what Paul and I, and maybe others of you too, did a few years ago, which was to travel around and start meeting with groups in rural communities. We went to Farmington, we went to Silver City, Deming, Las Vegas, we didn't go to Las Vegas. Oh yes, we did. We went to Las Vegas, Truth or Consequences. We went to several places and we just listened to people. And that was the reason we were there. And we learned a lot from that. So
it seems to me like that, because that's what I was thinking in terms of like, you know, the mayor domos in smaller rural communities, and the Catholic Church, especially in the Hispano areas, are really influential. And I know a lot of times we think about rural, we think about, you know, Anglo dudes with guns in the southern part of the state. And I mean, I hate to be generalist about it, but that's kind of what we're thinking. But we also have to think about, you know, the old school, the old style, the people that have been here for generations and generations. And so that was what prompted my question. So yeah, I mean, I think going out and visiting is a really good idea. You know.
We have something with Lincoln County in about 2 weeks.
Well, we're doing it online though.
Yeah, online, the Democratic Party of Lincoln County.
Eventually we'll restart face-to-face.
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to Terry.
Terry Storch.
Just a quick observation or suggestion to inject what this group seems to be missing is diversity of age and background. And so just a suggestion is that when you're looking at who to hire for some of those positions, that's the way you can sort of front load a young person and a person of color and get that perspective in. And just from my own experience as a ward chair, a young guy sort of found his way to me to help me do some organizing stuff, just more technological stuff and so on. But his vision of how to handle things was so different and so welcome. And there's a lot to be said for the completely different person coming in and looking at even what the two of you have put together as an approach.
Trust me, when we think in terms of social media and technology, you know, that's not most of our bandwidth stuff. And so we're hoping that a younger person would fit that role very well.
But even ideas, Paul, not
right.
just.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But
okay.
See, there also could be a gateway. You know, if we got somebody who's a UNM part-time student, they're going to know other people who are UNM students and things like that. And so they can engage those people. And we really want to, over time, make sure that when we turn on these Zooms, it looks a little bit more like New Mexico and a little less like the retirement village.
Well, but I mean, we can still reach out, and I'm just remembering something, one of our, was it Mark Diaz Truman who gave us a lot of great advice in the beginning? He's down in Albuquerque. He's not really doing activism education anymore, but he said, you know, just reach out to different groups, young people, indigenous people. Don't expect them to come to your meetings. You have to go to their meetings. You have to go to them and start participating and supporting them rather than expecting them to show up at your meetings. And so we have done some of that, not nearly as much as we would like because we just don't have the time, but that's something that's still, you know, in mind.
Very good point, Terry. Thank you. I think it's Adam and then Jeffrey.
Yeah. Hey, I don't want this to sound too highfalutin or anything, but I think when I listen to you, I think I'm trying to put together, ask the question, what is your theory of change? How does change happen? And this is what you know, some people, you know, think political social change happens from below. You build a big mass movement, people go out in the street and they get mad and put pressure on. Some people think it's an inside game where you work the political system real hard, or you build networks, or you collect. That is, what is
yeah, all of the above.
What's the theory we want to try to apply? That's what
I actually think, Adam, that's a great, you know, I hate it when people say that. That's a great question. You know, politicians always say, that's the first thing they say. That's a great question. But that is a great question. And I haven't really, and I'm very familiar with theory of change. It's something we employed in my consulting firm all the time. But I think we have to think about it because we're facing some decisions now that involve having to make some decisions about what that theory of change is. Because for a while, Retake has been sort of incendiary, sort of. If you know, the last report card, it was all about how we could take out some senators who were dinos and things like that. And we'll write stuff about the governor and how she works for the gas and oil. And all of those things might be true, but are they getting us the change we want? And if the governor and Lundstrom and Munoz are borderline immovable, in other words, you know, it would be a much harder lift to remove Patty Lundstrom than John Arthur or any of the other folks that got ousted in the last election chain. And if you take them on, they are your enemy. And so one of the things I've often struggled with is, and I see it with New Energy Economy plays the outside game and Sierra Club plays the inside game. And I feel, you know, where the Sierra Club is never going to say anything negative about the governor or the legislature. I mean, they basically are all about, oh, we did so great. Oh, we did so great. But they do great work and they have access to the governor and they can make suggestions. We don't get invited to those circles because we're seen as pretty critical. Yeah. And we're in the process of weighing. I'm not saying we're going to go one way or the other. I just think that your point, Adam, is very important. We really have to think about it. There's a good role for those on the outside, you know, who are constantly challenging and bringing new ideas. But might it be possible that those new ideas would be embraced more easily if we weren't quite as confrontational about it? And so one of the things I've got a book by my table right now, Getting to Yes. And someone once told me when we were at a Buddhist retreat after the session before last, and she was saying, you know, maybe what you need to do with the governor is bring her something she'll be eager to say yes to, but that is advancing what you want, instead of just thinking from our perspective, what would be the right thing to do, the best thing to do, and so forth. But that's a good question and something we could maybe have a full Zoom conversation with the whole group about in terms of people's perspective. So thank you for that. Jeffrey, you're up next.
I want to go take a step back. Paula and Roxanne, it sounds like you have a high degree of confidence regarding establishing the 401(c) or 501(c). I guess I'm wondering if you want some help from us or how in terms of getting there. I recall that you had made a comment that there needs to be a certain number of donations or whatever for current, Retake Our Democracy. And at least maybe I misunderstood that. I had sent you an email. I know you're really busy. I hadn't heard back whether it's a certain dollar amount we need to show or a certain number of people that give $25 each or what. And then moving toward, actually accomplishing the 501(c). In terms of the financial side of it, could you enlighten us a little bit more on that?
Yeah, the reason I didn't get back to you is because I wanted to hear from some foundations. And the foundations said, and this is a small sample size, but one of them just said, we want to fund you, just get the friggin' letter. And it shouldn't, I don't think it's going to be, I don't think the money issue is going to be a big deal in getting the 501(c)(3). We were under the impression that we had to go to the IRS with a full-on proposal that would have taken us a couple of weeks to prepare, 5-year budget, board of directors, all of this stuff. And there's a fast track now for 501(c)(3)s that is, we could do probably in a couple of hours. And it only takes a couple of months to get your approval. So the bigger issue is, and so that's why we haven't asked for any more money in any of our blogs, because we've got $10,000 in the bank and we don't have many expenses. And so we'd rather have people, hold fire on making more donations. And then when they're deductible and they're going to Rethink, we can use them as leverage with foundations. And we have one of the things we're going to want to do. And Jeffrey, you said you wanted to be involved in fundraising. We are going to need somebody who can help us identify people who have given generously to us. And we've got, a good dozen people who have given $500 or more, and maybe more than that. And we want to have conversations with them. And then we also want to have, and we have friends, we have a couple of friends who are in this work who have affluence and have already told us when it comes time for a match challenge with your donors, we'll step up big time. And so we want to cobble all that together. And then, after having conversations with a couple of foundations, and if a foundation says, we'll give you $20,000 if you can raise $20,000 in the next 2 months. Well, then we'll have our ducks in a row to do that. And then we'll have enough money to get started, really. And, and then the second part will be, once we launch Rethink, we'll be making a much more concerted effort to get people to give $5, $10, $25, $50, $100 a month, so that we can show that we have 70 people who give a total of $6,000 a month or $3,000 a month. And so that alone gets us to half of our year one budget, that kind of thing. And just to give some confidence, the first 7 years of my career, I was a development director, and the last 7 years of my career, I was a development director. So I've done that kind of work. I will acknowledge I don't like it. But
doesn't like asking for
but all of a sudden I'm not doing it for somebody else, I'm doing it for us. And so I think it'll be a little easier.
But we will definitely ask for your help, Jeff.
Yeah. And Susan has her hand. And Adam, do you have your hand up for another comment, or did you just leave it up? Okay.
No.
Susan, your turn. You got to unmute.
Susan Harris.
Oh, just a suggestion, have you thought of having a speakers bureau? Because someone just talked about young people. They aren't going to come to our meetings. We have to go to their meetings. So it might be something to consider, that you had some people who've been trained, that they can give a good, succinct, attention grabbing who we are, what we're doing kind of thing. So that's the one idea. And then I also heard you mention you feel like you're not doing enough in the rural communities, that several of your priorities, taxation, good governance, climate, they affect everybody.
Right.
They may need a certain slant for rural, but really a lot of the things are just so for everyone. So I think that's good. I don't feel like you're neglecting rural totally.
We don't either really, but people in those rural communities need to understand why what we're doing is helping them too. Yeah.
But part of what we got from that road trip, we did 2 or 3 of them into rural parts of the state.
In like 2019, I think we did those, right?
Yeah.
Mostly.
And I did one in 2020 in the January, just before the roof caved in. And then we were told that, you know, you got to do more about rural bills. And so Roxy's bill was on our list, and Roxy's law, and you know, rural infrastructure, rural broadband, and a couple of water,
the food and ag
bills were on there explicitly, because we basically went, you know what, you're right.
And those are really important issues too.
Yeah.
There's always 3 times as many important issues out there than we can actually cover during any one legislative session.
Right. So are there any other comments or questions? I was going to tell you that on May 12th will be our next meeting. We're going to try and do them on Wednesdays. That's from 6 to 7. We'll keep them shorter. And we you know, once we have a group that's consistent and we know who they're going to be, we'll poll you and see. We did this with the transformation group when we moved the day. And it might be that 5:30 is better. It might be better to be done at 6:30, so it's easier for dinner. Tuesdays might be better than Wednesdays. But for now, we're going to go with Wednesdays, the 12th, and then it'll be every other week, and the 26th. And so we were going to do it May 5th, but we thought it was Cinco de Mayo, and you might be drinking too many tequilas for us.
I just want to add one more thing that I don't think we've captured in our planning for Rethink, but I do think we really need to give some thought to educating people about how to be active. I mean, we do that through alerts and stuff, but those are usually people who are already engaged to some level. But reaching out to people, and Bernie said something like this once, people have to believe that something is possible before they take action. And I think a lot of Americans just don't believe that anything they do, even voting, is going to make a difference. So we do need to be reaching out to people and trying to educate. I mean, whether that's creating curriculum for high school students, or I mean, there's a number of ways that it could happen, but we have to give people, we have to help people believe that if they do get active, something's going to happen. They're going to be able to make some changes, that they're going to have some power.
Yeah. And in terms of what we have, and I'll get to Laura in just a second, in the conversations with the foundations, one of the things they said was testimonials from your supporters would be very important. And, you know, after each session, it's almost embarrassing, the level and the volume of just grateful comments about
all the love we receive from all of you. It's so
and we keep
great.
We keep it for this reason, and it gratifies us. But you know, people saying I'd never been involved in politics before or legislative process, and you made it so easy, and you know, I really felt like I was involved, and that kind of thing. And so that was one. And then also from legislators and the CBOs like Voices and Common Cause, getting testimonials from them. And we have those already. So we're well poised to not just get the 501c3, but to start getting the necessary funding. And we're not interested in building a huge organization. We don't want to compete with other organizations. We just need a core staff that can get stuff done. Laura, you had your hand up.
Yeah, 2 things. I want to go back to what you were talking about, the rural oriented bills. And just to give an example, the infrastructure bill, you know, you say, a lot of people say the words infrastructure and it's like, but if you can frame it so that infrastructure means that there can be greater economic development in an area, a rural area, or that there can be greater access to healthcare, or that there is a more equitable approach to education. Then you can start, I think, reaching some people that you couldn't reach before because the language wasn't resonating with them. So that's just something for you to think about.
You know, actually, you know, that the thing, there's so many things about COVID that are weird. I mean, COVID is probably the reason we don't have Donald Trump as president right now, but it's also woken up a lot of people about how dependent we are on each other and how dependent we are on broadband and good roads and things like that.
Jobs.
And rural communities felt it the worst, and Navajo Nation felt it the worst. So that there's a certain level of guttural receptivity that's nascent out there right now. And if you come with the right language saying, look, folks, we can make your life, not we, you can make your life so much better. We just got to work together. And we've got some common needs and common opportunities.
Yeah.
So,
and I just want to acknowledge that Adam in the chat said we need, what's our niche in addition to theory of change? What do we bring to the table that's different? So yeah, I think we know what it is pretty clearly, but we just have to figure out how to articulate that. Yeah. So we can talk about that next time.
Yeah.
I have another comment. When you went through the priorities, the top 5 priorities, and then the roles that you were looking to fill, in future Zoom meetings, are you going to talk more about how to get involved, or? Okay.
Yeah, I think the next meeting will start ferreting out who has, and we'll send out an email to everyone here and to the few people, 4 or 5 people who couldn't make it, and just say, you know, this is, you know, here's what happened in the session, and I mean, in our Zoom, and the next meeting, we're going to be talking about roles you could play, and we'll have a document that sort of says the roles and direct them to the scope of work and say, you know, if one of these areas and one of these roles resonates for you, then, you know, we're going to be talking about that. And it could be that, you know, for one or more issues, we'll organize in teams. And in some, it might be people doing individual research or information gathering on their own. And so much of what we are able to do depends on who's in the room, who wants to do what. And, you know, if we, in a great world, if we had 17 people, each one of them had a different one of those 17 things they wanted to just dive into, we could make some reasonably rapid progress. But the real priority is those first 5, because we see them as foundational.
Well, and I keep telling Paul, I feel like we need to like write up a quote unquote business plan, because I think it will help clarify the way forward for us. I mean, I think we have some good thoughts on paper, we have a vision, you know, but how are we actually step by step planning to carry it out?
Right.
So we haven't really done that yet. And I think that'll help us with what you were just asking, Laura.
But our kids are out gone now, so we'll be able to focus a little
After
bit.
2 weeks, house full of people.
Be careful
right?
what you wish for.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
But
we're ready to
get back to work.
Get back to work. So thank you all for joining us. I hope most or all of you will be back next time. And if you know you went, wow, this is really interesting, I know John or Mary or Maria or Jose, they'd be interested in this. Rope them in, and because we want more people.
Just fib, tell them it's fun.
Okay. Thanks much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
And we recorded this for anybody who missed it, but then you
We'll
didn't
put it up
miss
on the website.
You didn't
Yeah.
miss it. Okay.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Have a nice evening. Good to see y'all.
Good to see everybody.